Well, good morning. I'm Chris Clark, President, CEO of the Georgia Chamber of Commerce. I want to welcome all of you today to our Future of Equality and Inclusion discussion. This is an outgrowth of the effort that we started last June to share with our members to help our companies around Georgia become more inclusive, more diverse, and to focus on economic mobility and empowerment. And so we've got a great program for you today, very innovative work being done with our friends at Invest Atlanta. Before we get started, I do want to remind you that you can keep track of our positions on our legislation at gachamber.com. We're also keeping updated on what's happening in DC, the new round of COVID support that's coming through. You can get all the latest information there on our COVID-19 landing page on the website. And I also want to let you know that on March 25th, we'll be hosting an HR webinar with some of our members to focus on the changes at the federal level that the Biden administration has passed on HR law that you need to know about as you get ready to plan for the upcoming year. So I hope that you'll join us on the 25th for that innovative and informative discussion. So again, thank all of you for being with us here on this St. Patrick's Day. If you're missing us, you can join us on our YouTube channel, or you can also get a copy of this on our podcast on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. So with me today is Dr. Eloisa Klementich, who is the new President CEO of Invest Atlanta. I say new, you've been there a little while now, but you're still new to Georgia. Before coming here, Eloisa worked for the U.S. Economic Development Administration in the Office of the Secretary. And before that, she worked in the Department of Economic Development in California and you were the deputy secretary there. I was the deputy commissioner here. So similar, we were competing against each other for a while there. I'll tell you a funny story. When I was deputy commissioner, I was coming in one morning and there was a huge billboard up with Arnold Schwarzenegger's face and it said, "Move your business to California." And our governor called me to his office before I even got into mine and come over. He said, "I want an office and billboards in California tomorrow." And so I think
that was probably us.
a lot of fun going back and forth there. But I appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. I am so impressed by the work that you and your team have been doing around economic empowerment and mobility. And I thought it would be some great lessons for our members, but also for our chambers and economic development partners around the state who are all trying to grapple with these new issues and how we help people move out of a state of poverty into prosperity and the role that business and government plays in that. And so I appreciate you taking the time, Eloisa, to be with us today. And I'll kind of get it started and then turn it over to you because I know you want to share with us some slide information, but you guys have merged the Workforce Atlanta and Invest Atlanta efforts really for the purpose of addressing economic mobility and empowerment in a very new and innovative way. And so we're excited to hear about that. I'm going to let you run with it a little bit, and then I'll come back in with some questions here in a few minutes.
And I will have to add that we did see a billboard pop up right in Hollywood that said Georgia was like 200 and some miles this way.
Yep, that was us.
All right. Well, it's really, Chris, it's a pleasure to be here. And I just want to let everybody know Chris is amazing leading the chamber. He came and spoke to Invest Atlanta, and our team was just really inspired by the work that you are leading. So thank you, Chris, for all your leadership there. And I am going to share my screen, and I'm hoping I can get this done correctly. All right. Are we looking at maybe not my children, but my presentation?
You are. We are.
All right, great. Good call. Okay, so again, Dr. Eloisa Klementich, and again, it's really an honor and pleasure to be here and speak to the chamber and just really have a conversation about some of the efforts that we're doing. Let me go to the next slide. As soon as it wants to wake up. Come on, slide. Oh, here we go. It's a little sleepy. So first is, what is Invest Atlanta and what is our mission? And I have to just point this out very, very quickly. One, our mission is to make Atlanta the most economically dynamic and competitive of the world. And we say that world because, as you know, we all know we are really at an international competition. It is really not with our neighbors. It's really, what are we doing nationally and internationally to be competitive? But with that said, what are we doing to ensure that in that effort, in the vision, that we are ensuring that we are taking care of everyone who calls Invest Atlanta home, which was really driven our equity statement, which is to really drive the benefits that everyone can perceive. So you're not seeing everything happen around you, but you are partaking in that opportunity and that growth. So Chris talked about this a little bit, and this is what I'm so excited about, because we will be, in my knowledge now, I have looked around, the only entity, or one of a few, maybe that's the safest way to say it, one of a few economic development agencies that will have 3 verticals. So oftentimes people don't recognize the breadth of things that we get involved in. So on the economic development side, we're very much involved in the business attraction, retention, expansion, small business loan. We have a revolving loan, several revolving loan funds in-house, technology and innovation. Specifically looked at what are we doing to try to ensure that those that are doing business here, those that want to do business here, and those that are starting up and beginning business, what are they doing and how are they being successful? What can we do to play a role in their success? Then the community development side, so the 2 basic pillars, was our tax allocation districts. If you've heard, many of you have heard of the West Side or the East Side TAD, right? So these are huge TIFs, or TADs as we call them, in the city that we are specifically targeted and focused on. What are we doing to create and support investment in these areas? And then under community development, we also do housing initiatives, because at the core, what is Invest Atlanta? I get that question. We are an authority. We can issue bonds. We can issue 501c3 bonds, revenue bonds, housing bonds. So that is why you see us being able to support a multifamily housing project, a senior housing project, a medical arts facility, to the stadium bonds. Yes, the new stadium bonds were issued by us. So the breadth of things that we can get involved in and touch and influence is really across the spectrum. And then we do neighborhood revitalization. We look specifically at key commercial corridors and what are we doing to drive investment in these areas. And in the housing, I did mention the bonds, that's important, but we also do down payment assistance. So if you are a new home buyer in the city, we have a down payment assistance program. And we even do owner occupied rehab. So we don't do the HGTV fabulous changes, but we are looking at critical repairs to ensuring that people are not displaced, that people could stay in their homes. So if you have a leaky roof or lead paint, or there's something we could come in and support too, we work to do that thanks to the city council and the mayor with the housing opportunity bond. The third vertical, which I am super excited about, which we think will be integrated by July 1st, is workforce. So before, I would say, well, Eloisa, you could have worked with workforce before. Yes, we could have. But there's nothing alike having all 3 verticals under one roof, all focused on the same initiatives. And I think the most important thing is all held accountable to each other and for each other's success. So that means returning phone calls. Let me give you some real clear examples. I'm attracting a company. They should be at the table. What kind of jobs are you needing? Who do I need to start training? Let's start working on that now. Then when they actually come, then we start holding them accountable. They receive an incentive from Invest Atlanta to welcome them to the city. But guess what? We're going to tie that incentive to you using people in WorkSource and you hiring locally and you using some of that expertise that we have here in Atlanta. So what we've done is we've taken one component and then we've started to, and I always use the term, braid and leverage our programs, because every revenue has their source. So we want to make sure everybody's maintained their identity, but how do we ensure that we're interlocking and working together all for that same objective? Makes a huge difference when it comes to how you move the needle and make a difference in the city. All right, so what have we done? Our results, very quickly. 756 million total investment, over 4,000 jobs, home ownership opportunities. That's the down payment program, small business loans. At the end of the day, it's about providing impact and impact to individuals of color. And this is, we are tracking very specifically. So we continue to attract companies to the city, and these are the type that we'll work on, and you'll see different ones. And I know I've worked with Chris in the chamber on many of them, and they're great partners, and Georgia Power could not do it without their support. But where are we on the One Atlanta mobility plan? And I'm going to go quickly because I want to allow enough time for conversations. The first is the plan began in 2017. I started to write that RFP. We issued it, got it out by 2018, and now it's done by 2020. Why do I mention that? Because there was a lot of community input. We went around different parts of the city and start saying, what is it that you need and how can we be supportive in making these opportunities possible? Again, the idea was it's the first economic development plan focused on economic mobility at its core. Okay, and so this is going to start to change fundamentally how we see things, not necessarily what we do, but how we see things. All right, the plan has 4 basic objectives, and we call them pathways. Economic pathways are some that we just talked about: job creation, entrepreneurship development, small business loans. What are we doing to create wealth through entrepreneurism? Basically is economic pathways in your economy. Education pathways, early education, and I'm gonna come back to this one just a second. People-based pathways. Think about here, I'm thinking my community development department. Where are we focused on, my work source development? That's why they were so crucial to this plan. Where are we to ensure that people have the job that they want, right? Because we could say this all the time. We all know we have an affordable housing issue here in our city. I cannot build our way out of affordable housing. We're going to have to be able to provide individuals with a greater capacity so that they can earn a higher wage. And hopefully the goal is not need that affordable housing unit anymore. And then place-based. So this is my community development. Think about my TADs, think about my South Side initiatives it's focused on. What are we doing in specific parts of town where we know for years and years there's been many years of displacement, or I should say of disinvestment in these areas, and what are we doing to specifically concentrate in there? Now, I do want to just highlight, because when my staff first saw, or I should say when the team first saw these 4, they're like, oh, listen, we don't do education. I got you, we don't. But there was no way you could create, in our humble opinion, a mobility strategy that did not contemplate education. It is so crucial to the ability to someone to be able to move and to earn a higher wage. So for us, this one's a challenging one. This is not as easy. How do we engage? How do we support? And I'm really excited about some things you're going to see about what we're doing specifically in that space. And hopefully it's at my next board meeting. So you'll see more soon. So here's where you can download the entire plan. It's on our website, or you can scan this QR code. All right. I do want to spend, Chris had asked real quick, what did you do on COVID? The first recovery plan, what we do and how impactful? And this is, I have to tell you, there's a lot of things that Invest Atlanta could do better. Just call it what it is. But there are some things that when we need to, we lean in and we move very quickly. And I think an agency or any entity has to continually try to get better, right? If not, you're falling behind. And that's what I strongly believe. Here we implemented not 1, not 2, I like to tell people, 5 programs in less than 6 months. In our history, in my history, have we ever deployed $22 million in that period of time? And so we first in March, think about the CDC guidelines said, or the CDC said we are at our 1-year anniversary, Chris, I think it was from COVID. Okay, in March, we created a program. That was pretty quick. We were the first ones. Is that we pitched the idea to the city council and the mayor. They took it on. We produced a loan. We said, I don't know what's going on with this COVID thing. Now put your mind back in March where we were all very incredulous. I don't know where we are, but we know businesses are going to need some help. So we put out a loan program. And at the time we said, we opened it up, anything to do with CARES or preparation, go ahead and start to use this loan program. So we were out very first. That has now changed to a grant, but at the time it was a loan. Then we came out to Strength and Beauty. This was $1,000 grants to cosmetology professionals. This was not any government money. This was the mayor reaching out, public-private partnership, fundraising for those within this industry. Very hard while hit. Why? Because people weren't getting their bangs cut because of the distance. Then the next one, creative industry. We saw a lot of our independent creatives, the smaller guys and gals, not being able to meet their rent payments because their production company or their job got canceled or got postponed. I mean, this was all so liquid when this happened. So we mobilized that very quickly. And then our recovery loan fund, again, this was for the peaceful demonstrations. Do you remember? Well, otherwise peaceful, but there were some businesses that were impacted. One of the things that we recognized when I walked those corridors during after the incidents, I went out and talked to businesses, and they said, Eloisa, we just had COVID. I don't have cash flow, and I got to pay my deductible. What did we do? I'm telling you, we put a program together. I went to city council. They gave us funds. We put a program to cover businesses' deductible. They had insurance to go cover for the loss, but they didn't have enough from the deductible. Quick, that was our big one, $40,000 for grant money, and then $10,000 for technical assistance. This program really was time for all of us, but we're excited that we were able to impact about 600 businesses throughout the city of Atlanta in record time. So 20 million COVID related grants, 819 applications approved for all of those programs, not just the CARES Act, and 9,225 jobs impacted. Now, what does this mean in terms of middle wage jobs? One of the programs I want to talk about is when we talk about equity. We are specifically looking for how we can support programs and initiatives that are in the South Side that support a middle wage job. We call it out. When we attract, Chris, you know this, we're always saying, oh, these are high paying jobs. We love the high paying jobs, but we are focused now on our middle wage job. What are those businesses that are going to give me that $40,000 to $80,000 job? Those are the jobs that I need to attract to the city. I've heard some of the missing middle terms. And so that is what we're looking for. So I'm excited to say that what we've done is really teamed up with really exciting projects to support just this specifically. And then what we did is we worked with city council and the mayor to create a middle wage job fund. I now have an incentive for those businesses to attract just this type of company. And that had never happened. And now we're going to track them. How many middle wage jobs are you bringing to the city? So I'll close with where are we on the American Rescue Plan? You guys have seen the coverage. We think then some of the initial numbers I'm seeing is about 160 million to the city. I am working now on what is the next phase of the American Rescue Plan. I will tell you that some of my lessons learned from both PPP and CARES Act is if we are, which we are, going to target some of our brown and Black businesses, is they need a little help and I'm going to talk about this several times, is how do they get their documents ready? They're not even able to come and take care of these or apply for these because they don't have all their financials in place. So we're looking at some sort of pre-development or pre-application fund available to help these individuals prepare for when the funding comes down. So those are some of the high level, but I know there's exciting questions, Chris, so I'm going to open them up to any other questions you may have. And should I stop sharing now?
You can stop sharing. That'd be great. So thank you. You covered a whole lot, and we could probably talk through this for a couple of hours, but I want to go in a couple of areas here. First of all, thank you for what you guys did during COVID. You were innovative, and I appreciate the fact that you guys shared what you learned, good and bad, with other development organizations around the state. I know several of them use your lessons to build out programs in Gwinnett and other parts of the state. So thank you for your willingness to do that during the middle of COVID. But I want to go back to the One Atlanta strategy for a minute. There's a new project that's coming, and I talked to one of their executives recently. He's coming to Atlanta, and he said, the reason we're moving here is because we can get a more diverse talent pool than anywhere else in the world. Can you talk just a minute about what you're hearing from companies, how important diversity, inclusiveness, economic mobility are becoming for these big company decisions, both in the middle wage earners as well as the high wage earners?
Yeah, I think it was, to your point, it's been key to many decisions. Workforce, you ask many companies, what was the main reason you came? And it's your workforce and your diversity in that workforce. So I think that, as you and many of the members know, it really is the access to young talent, the diversity. The AUC Center schools are amazing and a rich and robust tool for us, and asset that we are just privileged to have in the city. That kind of education is going to be crucial to businesses. But that third piece I want to also highlight is the work source piece of why that integration is so important to us, is because we got to continue to cultivate more and bring individuals to added skill sets so they could partake. So yes, key is the work source, workforce component, the AUC centers, Georgia Tech, Georgia State, and I would also add our creatives. So SCAD, it's interesting when I talk to many companies, they'll say, well, Eloisa, we're really excited about coming, we're excited about what you have. And what they're excited about is that many teams are engineers are fabulous. My daughter is going to be an engineer. So, but my other one's an artist, and they need both. Businesses need that creativity, right? It's about thinking about how you stay competitive. So businesses recognize that. So I think that balance between the engineering, the Georgia States, the Kennesaws, the technical systems, and then the art community is really it's sort of like all coming together, and it's creating the best out of all of us because they're bringing all those talents together.
Right. So let's go another level down on this issue of equality. I want to share with you some statistics here. I found these were fascinating. A recent study by JP Morgan Chase said that for every dollar a white family earns in America, Black families earn only 32 cents and Hispanic families only earn 47 cents. And so, we saw the disparity during COVID, right? With the unemployment numbers, with the business closures of Black and brown businesses. Now you're seeing it, even taken to the next level of just everyday life with our families. And so how is it you bring stakeholders together? I mean, you've got a good plan, right? You got the vision for it, but how do you actually go in and start breaking down and trying to find some equity and move these numbers in the right direction?
Yeah, I think at the core, it's going to have to be about, well, let me back up 1 second. Those numbers you referenced, the 32 cents for every dollar and the 47 cents for families, that has been years and years in the making. So we're not going to be able to solve this in 1 or 2 or even 10 years. This is going to take a commitment over time and a commitment of all of us together. So I put that out in front. The second thing is that what we're going to have to do is provide opportunities where people are. We got to meet them where they are. And so that means providing services and access to those services in the South Side. We actually did a map and we looked at where are the education institutes, where are the service providers, and they are concentrated in that line of the pretty much I-20, north of I-20. And so what we're going to have to do is try to, and this is one of our target areas, is bring service facilities down south of I-20 to address medical deserts south of I-20, food deserts south of I-20. What are we doing to provide the resources so that individuals can be successful? And then when those resources, I would highlight not only education, formal education, technical education, but also training. Where are we to provide individuals with training opportunities so that they themselves can begin to do what they need to do, prepare themselves so they can earn a higher wage. So it's community helping bringing services, it's individuals engaging in these services so they can begin to partake more. But again, it's going to take all of us to pitch in together.
And it's to your point, it's generational. We didn't get here overnight. We're not going to get out of this overnight. So one of the things that we've been promoting is if you really want to move out of generational poverty, starting your own business is proven. The numbers are all there. It makes a difference long term. And so I want to talk about that for a moment because, one of the groups that impresses me and just inspires me is what Jay Bailey and the Russell Center and the Russell family are doing there to start new Black businesses. They sent me a huge box of the goods and products that were made by the companies, Black-owned businesses in that center. It was amazing. But as I talk to the Hispanic community in Georgia, we don't have a similar type of incentive or a program there, but yet the number one growth demographic for starting your own business is Latino women, right? But they also have the highest failure rate. And so any thoughts there on looking at how you target that particular community to give them some of the same training that you've talked about?
Yeah. I would say that what's exciting, I'll start with there first on the Russell Center of
Yes.
Innovation, is they kind of put the seed in the venue and Jay and the entire family. And then we, for example, have offices there now. We
Right.
haven't been able to go because of COVID, but we have been thinking about how do we partake? How do you bring other services to make it easier? So pretty much the same idea with the South Side in a smaller footprint.
Mhm.
So that's the first one. I think that's key is how do we see the opportunity? How do we leverage success? And there are now more of these opening up in the South Side. So I'm excited about when we get I don't think we all go back, but back to living with more masks outside, we're going to see more of this service directly in communities where it needs to be. I think in the Hispanic community, all of these, I've never heard Jay or anyone being exclusive. I mean, it
Right.
really is an opportunity for everyone to partake. I would say, if you're Hispanic, please go to the restaurant, go to the Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative. There are going to be services there. So even if we did it, now I will say that we need the more services, the better. So if we could bring up more, I would, all of us would be supportive. So I would say, even if we don't see in name, use the services if you have a great idea out there.
Right. That's great advice. And I think too often we're focused on this is for this group or this is for this group, but they're Invest Atlanta supporting anybody and everybody out there, right?
Right.
Um,
That's correct. Yeah.
so I'm conscious of your time and our guest time today, but I have two more questions for you. So what advice do you have for communities that quite frankly don't have the resources of Atlanta, right? We're blessed in Atlanta. You're blessed with the resources at Invest Atlanta, but a lot of our communities, whether they're Macon or Columbus or even in a smaller community like Albany or Valdosta, don't have those same resources. How would you suggest they start down this road of looking at economic mobility and empowerment as part of their overall strategy? What advice do you have for them?
I hope I really say this with a full heart, and I hope that it comes across that way. And the best example I can use is when I ask my daughter, go clean your room. Okay, let me tell you what she does. She puts the comforter up. She didn't straighten the street sheets, right? She just put the comforter up. And then she takes all the clothes on the floor, puts it in the dirty hamper because it's all supposedly dirty, which it's not clean. And so what I say is, if you're going to clean your room and really clean your room, you're going to have to look inside. Did you clean the blades in the fan? If you have molding, did you clean the molding on the top of it's looking for the not dirt, but looking for stuff. What can you look for to fix or clean or adjust? And I say that because, let me just give an example, and I share it with us at Invest Atlanta. We had our East Side TAD. Yes, we had some funding there. I did a search, said, can you tell me, we're just starting down this road, how many grants went to minorities? Okay, the number came back, it was like 28 to 30. Okay, that's really low for us. I was like, it's in a minority community. What? Like, I thought the number was going to be very, very high. So I was actually very saddened by the number. And then I said, well, Jennifer was the one who put the numbers. I said, Jennifer, how many did we deny? Chris, do you want to have a guess? How many applications did we deny for minorities?
No idea. Zero. Wow.
Zero. So what that exercise proved to me, it was, and all almost the 90% of all the owners down some corridors are owned by African Americans. Was what we learned. Lesson learned to me was that many African American owners, community members, Hispanics, they may own the asset. They may be rich in the asset, but their cash flow is not as fluid. And so the question then becomes, if we're going to ask them to go even apply for money, I was giving them money to fix up their buildings. They couldn't prepare. They didn't have the money to go prepare. Why? Because my application, as in many governments, it has to be, because it's government dollars. I need to be responsible. They ask for, you need to have, what is your plan? What is your financial? What is your EIR? Where are your architecture rendering? We have to look at that before we make decisions, right? It's your tax dollars. So I got to make sure that I'm providing the money to the projects that are going to happen. And so what we created for the very first time was a development grant. So you come to our agency, you ask for a pre-development, actually it's a loan, a pre-development loan. We'll give you the loan. You go do all your due diligence, then you come back to us and apply. The application rate went up tremendously. It was really looking to see what, because you could say, I have a grant program, no one's coming to me. I have a loan program, they're not. Why? What are the challenges? And we talked about the challenge. You look at the PPP, why did many African Americans and Hispanics not apply? Because they couldn't get their financials in order fast enough, because you had to apply very quickly. Whatever, that dad is my dad was an entrepreneur. He had his own business. He was great at fixing cars. He could fix any car you ever wanted him to. Was he good at accounting? No. Did he know marketing? No. Forget legal stuff, but man, he knew how to fix a car. So if it wasn't for my mom who helped, but they didn't have a formal system, my mom was doing it all by hand. So those are the things that then when the government says we have a opportunity to come apply, if you don't have everything in order, it's difficult to apply. So I think it's really understanding deep dive. So if your commitment, my advice to you is, if your commitment is to make a difference in this equity conversation, is to really deep dive and say, why are these loans not being used? Why, even if it's not many, or where are we? What are people doing, and who's accessing them? And do we need to change the criteria a little bit?
Right. I think that's great advice, and I'll encourage our listeners out there, our partnerships with the Atlanta Black Chambers and the Georgia Hispanic Chambers, our relationship with LAA, there are tons of groups out there that are willing to help you do this. And obviously Invest Atlanta's got the program in place. So lots of partners there and lots that you can learn from. So last question I have for you, I'm going to ask you to put on your futurist hat for a minute. You're an innovator, you think long-term. We've started this effort to ask Georgians about how we reimagine Georgia's new economy as we look at 10 years down the road. And so I'm curious, in your opinion, if we get things right, what does Atlanta look like 10 years from now from an inclusive diversity, empowerment, mobility standpoint? Or tell me what challenges we need to specifically address in order to have that new vision.
To me, it all is wrapped up in it. I'm sure your community, everybody knows, Atlanta is the number one, if not number two city when it comes to income inequality. Every time. You don't want to be on top of many lists. You want to be on top of many lists, but not that one. Right. And so I think for me, the biggest success was that they say in 10 years, Atlanta, how did you do it? You are now in the 50th quintile of inequality. If we were to come, that may be a stretch 10 years, but if we could go down 20 points, God, that would be huge. Because that really looks at everything. And I think to me, that is the one indicator we all are looking at. So when we put our KPIs together, I went to the United Way, I went to the Community Foundation, I went to ARC. I said, what are you guys looking at? I said, can we all kind of look at the same? I go, because, or can we all leverage each other so that we're all shooting north, but maybe a little bit this way, but heck, let's all kind of go the same direction, because I don't have enough resources. You guys are amazing groups. And so I made sure they know my KPIs, I know theirs. We incorporated some of theirs into ours. We've never done things like that before. Now we're holding agencies accountable to each other. I want to help them and I need to help them, but now I'm accountable to helping them. That changes the story. And when I leave that, my predecessor will be accountable to them too. Because sometimes it's people and relationship based, and it can't be. It has to be institutional, that lives on. And so how do we get those KPIs and achieve them together as a community? How do we lower ourselves? Man, if we could come down 20, that would be amazing. And then I would just personally, for Invest Atlanta, I would love the article says Invest Atlanta did it. 3 agencies together, amazing, set the national pace. And now all other cities are looking at the same sort of structure.
That's the best answer I've had so far, and I think it speaks right to the point. A great way to wrap up today. Eloisa, thank you for what you do, your leadership there. We look forward to working with you and promoting what you do and connecting people with you. We're here to be a resource and a partner for you. For all of those that are listening today on our podcast or that joined us live or watching this on YouTube, thank you for being with us. Join us on March 25th for our next webinar on HR issues. And continue to follow us on our social media platforms and at www.gachamber.com. Eloisa, thanks so much for being with us. God bless.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. God bless. Bye-bye.